He, a widowed tycoon, creates a game to find the perfect mother for his son. She, a humble housekeeper, connects with the child. The son, without hesitation, chooses her. "I like Aunt Sophia to be my mom." Dominic is shocked. The woman he was looking for was right there, invisible to his eyes. Before we start the story, leave a comment and tell us what city you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The alarm clock rang at 5 in the morning, as always. Sophia Carter opened her eyes in the small room she shared with her younger sister in the Bronx, New York. The leaky ceiling and peeling paint were the first scenery she saw every day, but she had long since learned not to be discouraged by the limitations of her reality. She got up silently so as not to wake up Maria, who worked late at a gas station, and headed for the icy shower that awaited her in the tiny bathroom. While preparing a weak coffee and eating the stale bread left over from dinner, Sophia mentally planned the day ahead. First stop, the Albright Mansion in the upscale neighborhood of Greenwich, Connecticut, where she had worked as a housekeeper for almost 2 years. Second stop, the Hope House shelter in downtown Manhattan, where she spent her afternoons volunteering, caring for abandoned and orphaned children. Two completely opposite realities intertwined in her daily routine, forming the mosaic of a simple life, but full of purpose. The almost 2-hour commute on public transportation between the Bronx and Greenwich was a ritual of transformation. Sophia watched from the bus window as the landscape gradually changed. The simple, cramped houses gave way to gated communities. The potholed streets became wide, tree-lined avenues, and the local shops gave way to gleaming shopping malls. It was like traveling between two distinct worlds, and she was a discreet visitor in both. The Albright Mansion stood imposingly behind wrought iron gates, surrounded by meticulously manicured lawns. Sophia always felt a pang in her chest when she passed through the gates. It wasn't envy, but a mixture of admiration and awareness of her place in that universe. She was just Sophia, the housekeeper, an almost invisible figure who ensured that every room sparkled without ever truly belonging to that space. Dominic Albright was rarely home during her working hours. When they crossed paths in the hallways, he greeted her with a courteous but distant nod. For him, Sophia was part of the house's infrastructure, as essential as she was discreet. That's how she preferred it, working in silence, doing her job perfectly, and leaving without leaving traces of her presence, other than the impeccably clean house. What touched her most in that house was not the expensive objects or the sophisticated decor, but the melancholy that hung in the rooms. There was a tangible sadness in the walls, especially in the room of Leo, Dominic's 6-year-old son. The boy was polite and well-behaved, but Sophia perceived in his eyes a loneliness she knew well. Not the loneliness of poverty like hers, but the emotional loneliness of someone who possesses everything materially and nothing sentimentally. During her lunch breaks, Sophia sometimes found Leo playing alone in the playroom. The boy had every toy imaginable, but he played with a seriousness that was unnatural in children his age. She always smiled at him and asked about his games, and Leo replied with the politeness he had learned, but also with a genuine gleam in his eyes that suggested a hunger for real attention. The other house staff, the cook, Mrs. Lucy, and the gardener, Mr. Anthony, commented to each other about the absence of a maternal figure in the boy's life. Dominic's wife had passed away when Leo was only 2 years old, and since then, the house had been breathing an atmosphere of permanent mourning. Dominic took refuge in his work. Leo took refuge in his expensive toys, and life continued in a melancholy dance of well-established routines. In the afternoon, when she finished her shift in Greenwich, Sophia took 2 buses to get to downtown Manhattan, where the Hope House shelter was located. It was an old and simple building, but it breathed life and hope. There, her reserved personality transformed. The children ran to meet her shouting, "Aunt Sophia!" and she knelt down to receive the tight hugs and wet kisses that were her greatest reward. At the shelter, Sophia was needed in a completely different way. She wasn't invisible, but central. The children depended on her to listen to their stories, clean their scrapes, dry their tears, and celebrate their small achievements. She was the mother that many of them never had, and that responsibility filled her with purpose. Mrs. Sebastian, the director of the shelter, always said that Sophia had a natural gift for maternal care. "You were born to be a mother," she used to repeat. "It's a pity that life hasn't given you that opportunity yet." Sophia smiled sadly. At 28 years old, single, without romantic prospects, and focused on supporting her family, motherhood seemed like a distant and improbable dream. The nights in the Bronx were a return to harsh reality. Sophia helped Maria with her GED studies, took care of her mother who suffered from arthritis, and dreamed of a better future for all of them. Her salary as a housekeeper was modest, but enough to keep the house running. She saved every penny, dreaming of one day being able to take a teaching course and work officially with children. She knew that she was invisible to the world of the Albrights, knew that her humble origins would always keep her as a peripheral figure in those sophisticated circles. But Sophia had learned early on that true wealth was not measured in bank figures. Her wealth was in the smiles of the children at the shelter, in Leo's silent gratitude when she offered him a hidden candy, in the dignity of her honest work, and in the hope of better days. Every day, as she crossed New York City between the two worlds that made up her life, Sophia carried with her the certainty that she was exactly where she needed to be, doing exactly what she should be doing. She didn't know that very soon her life would take a turn she could never have imagined, transforming her invisibility into protagonism and proving that sometimes the simplest hearts hold the most precious treasures. It was on a rainy Monday in May that everything began to change. Sophia arrived at the Albright mansion finding a different atmosphere than usual. Leo was sitting on the marble staircase of the main hall, hugging his faded teddy bear with silent tears running down his face. The scene made Sophia's heart ache. "Good morning, Leo. What's wrong?" she asked, crouching down to the boy's height and speaking in the gentle tone she reserved for the children at the shelter. "Daddy yelled at me because I didn't want to go to school," Leo mumbled without looking up. "He said I'm being too difficult and that he needs to find someone to take better care of me." Sophia felt a pang in her chest. She knew that pain of rejection, of feeling like a burden to others. She sat down next to Leo on the stairs, ignoring the fact that her simple clothes contrasted with the luxury of the surroundings. "You know what I think?" she said, taking a clean tissue from her bag. "I think your daddy loves you very much, but sometimes adults get confused about how to show love. At the shelter where I work, there's a boy named Johnny who also gets sad when he feels misunderstood." Leo finally looked at her, curious. "What shelter?" "It's a place where I take care of children who don't have a mommy or daddy. They're very brave, you know. And they've taught me that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who make us the most nervous, because we're afraid of not being good enough for them." As they talked, Dominic came down the stairs from his office, still with the tense expression from the morning's argument. He stopped when he saw Sophia sitting next to his son, talking as if they were old friends. Leo hadn't cried like that in months, and seeing him calming down in the housekeeper's presence intrigued him. "Sophia," he said, his voice softer than usual, "thank you for helping. It's nothing, Mr. Albright. Leo is a special boy." Dominic watched as Sophia gracefully got up, helped Leo dry his face, and offered him an encouraging smile before heading off to her chores. There was something in the naturalness of that gesture that touched him in an unexpected way. It wasn't the forced kindness he knew from the women in his social circle, but something genuine and maternal. That afternoon, after a particularly frustrating meeting about Leo's behavioral problems at school, Dominic made a decision that would change the course of their lives. He called a meeting with his personal assistant, Helen, and his family lawyer, Dr. Richard Miller. "I need to find a wife," he announced without preamble, leaving both speechless. "Not a wife for me, necessarily, but a mother for Leo. He's suffering from the absence of a maternal figure, and I'm not managing to fill that gap alone. Helen, always practical, was the first to recover from the shock. Mr. Albright, are you talking about an arranged marriage? I'm talking about a rigorous selection process, Dominic corrected, his mind already working in the strategic mode he used for his businesses. I want to find the perfect woman to be Leo's mother. Someone intelligent, educated, maternal, but who genuinely cares about him, not just my fortune. Dr. Miller frowned. Dominic, you're talking about human beings, not employees. Relationships don't work like business contracts. Why not? Dominic retorted. I have clear criteria. I need specific results. I'm going to create controlled situations where I can observe how different women interact with Leo. Specialized nannies, elite tutors, child psychologists, development consultants, all with different pretexts for being here, but all being evaluated on their genuine maternal capacity. Helen took notes rapidly. And how do you intend to measure that? Leo will be my yardstick. Children are honest. They sense when someone is being fake. If a woman can win Leo's trust and genuine affection, she will have passed the most important test. What Dominic didn't know was that, at that very moment, Sophia was in Leo's room, helping him with his homework. The boy had shyly asked for her help, and she had accepted during her lunch break. "Aunt Sophia, do you think my daddy doesn't like me?" Leo asked, nibbling on the end of his pencil. "Of course he does, Leo. Your daddy works very hard to give you everything good. Sometimes adults get so worried about giving things that they forget to give affection. But that doesn't mean they don't love you. Do you have kids, Aunt Sophia?" The question hit Sophia like a punch to the stomach. "No, Leo, but at the shelter where I work, I take care of many children. And they've all taught me that being a mother isn't just about giving birth to someone. It's about caring, protecting, loving without expecting anything in return." Leo nodded thoughtfully. "I wish I had a mom like you, who really talked to me." Sophia felt her eyes welling up. "You're going to find someone special, Leo. Someone who will love you exactly as you deserve." Meanwhile, Dominic was finalizing the details of his plan. In the coming months, a succession of exceptional women would pass through the mansion, each with a different specialty, each being tested on her ability to connect with Leo. He would observe each interaction, analyze each gesture, measure each response from his son. It was a perfect, scientific, efficient plan. Dominic was convinced that he had finally found the solution to the problem that tormented him: Leo's loneliness and, consequently, his own. What he couldn't predict was that the answer he was looking for was already there, every day, cleaning his house with silent dedication and winning his son's heart with the simplicity of genuine gestures. Sophia remained invisible to his analytical eyes, but for Leo, she was already beginning to represent everything a mother should be: presence, affection, and authenticity. The trap was set, the game was ready to begin. Dominic Albright, accustomed to getting everything he wanted through meticulous planning, was about to discover that love doesn't follow business scripts, and that sometimes the greatest riches are hidden where we least expect to find them. 2 weeks later, the Albright mansion was buzzing with unusual activity. Dominic had put his plan in motion with the military precision he applied to all his ventures. The first candidate arrived on a Thursday, Dr. Camilla Rogers, an educational theorist from Columbia University with a specialization in child development from Harvard. Officially hired as an educational consultant for Leo, Camilla was everything Dominic had idealized on paper: elegant, articulate, with an impeccable resume and glowing references. She arrived at the mansion wearing a discreet but expensive suit, carrying an Italian leather briefcase filled with imported educational materials and a folder with studies on innovative teaching methodologies. "Leo needs intellectual stimuli appropriate to his cognitive ability," she explained to Dominic, while organizing colorful flashcards on the table in the study room. "Gifted children like him require differentiated approaches to maximize their potential." Dominic watched from the doorway as Camilla presented Leo with a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle with classic art motifs. The boy stared at the pieces without showing the slightest interest, his eyes wandering to the window where he could see Sophia hanging the towels on the clothesline in the backyard. "Leo, are you paying attention?" he asked Camilla, adjusting her thin-rimmed glasses. "This puzzle develops fine motor skills and spatial perception." "I don't want to do puzzles," Leo mumbled, fidgeting uncomfortably in his chair. "But Leo, this is a scientifically proven method to—" "I said I don't want to," the boy exploded, pushing the pieces that scattered across the floor. Dominic frowned. Leo rarely had outbursts like that. Camilla maintained her professional posture, but he perceived the contained irritation in her eyes. It was exactly the kind of reaction that worried him. Too much technique, too little humanity. The next day, Amanda Silva, a renowned child psychologist, arrived, officially hired to assess Leo's emotional well-being after the recent changes in his school routine. Amanda brought a completely different approach. Therapeutic games, free drawings and conversations about feelings. "Let's draw your family, Leo," suggested Amanda, offering imported crayons. "Draw the most important people in your life." Leo picked up the paper, but stood still for long minutes. Amanda waited patiently, making notes in a discreet pad. When the boy finally started to draw, he made two figures, a large one representing himself and a smaller one next to it. "Who is that person with you, Leo?" asked Amanda. "It's Aunt Sophia. She teaches me cool things and doesn't get mad when I don't understand," Amanda noted quickly, but Dominic, watching from afar, felt something strange in his chest. Leo had drawn Sophia, not him. And Sophia was the person his son considered most important in his life, after himself. While the official candidates took turns at the mansion, Sophia continued her normal routine, oblivious to the drama unfolding around her. During her breaks, Leo naturally sought her out. She never asked intrusive questions or proposed structured activities. She simply talked to him as if he were a small friend. "And Sophia, why do people keep trying to teach me things I don't want to learn?" Leo asked one afternoon while she was cleaning the windows in the living room. "Maybe because they think teaching is the best way to show they care," Sophia replied, without stopping working. "But you know what I learned at the shelter? Sometimes children need someone who listens more than someone who teaches. You really listen to me, because you have interesting things to say. Yesterday you told me about that dinosaur book and I learned things I didn't know." Leo smiled, the first genuine smile Dominic had seen in weeks. Hidden behind the pillar in the hall, he watched the scene with growing perplexity. Sophia had no university degree, didn't apply pedagogical methodologies, didn't take behavioral notes. She just talked, and Leo responded in a way that didn't happen with any of the highly qualified candidates. The third candidate was Isabella Dubois, a Swiss nanny with 15 years of experience caring for the children of diplomats and international executives. Isabella arrived with impeccable references and a structured maternal approach. "Little Leo," she said with a heavy accent, "let's organize your toys in a pedagogical way, each category in its appropriate drawer." Leo obeyed mechanically, but Dominic noticed how the boy's shoulders tensed, how he constantly looked at the door, waiting to escape. When Isabella suggested they make cookies following exact mathematical proportions, Leo muttered that he had a stomachache. It was at that moment that Sophia appeared in the kitchen to get cleaning supplies. Leo ran to her as if she were a lifeline. "Aunt Sophia, can you teach me how to make real cookies, like you did with the children at the shelter?" Sophia looked at Isabella, embarrassed. "Sorry, miss, I don't want to interfere." "You're not interfering," said Isabella, clearly relieved to have a break. "Maybe you can help with the practical part." Sophia washed her hands and in minutes transformed the immaculate kitchen into a controlled chaos of scattered flour and laughter. She let Leo crack the eggs, even if half fell out of the bowl, and taught him to mix the dough with his hands. "The secret," she said, whispering conspiratorially, "is to put love into the dough. The cookies always taste better when we make them with affection." Leo laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. His little hands were covered in dough, he had flour in his hair, and he was completely happy. Dominic watched the whole scene from the kitchen door, a mixture of confusion and admiration growing in his chest. Isabella, the professional nanny, was leaning against the counter taking mental notes on unconventional engagement techniques. Sophia, the housekeeper, was creating genuine affectionate memories with his son. When the cookies came out of the oven, imperfect but delicious, Leo insisted on taking one to his father. "Daddy, try it!" Aunt Sophia and I made them together. Dominic bit into the irregular cookie, savoring not only the simple sweet, but the pure joy in Leo's eyes. It was the first time in months that he had seen his son truly happy, and that happiness had been created by Sophia, the woman he didn't even consider part of his selection process. That night, alone in his office, Dominic reviewed his notes on the candidates. Camilla, technically perfect, but Leo had resisted. Amanda, professionally competent, but Leo had remained distant. Isabella, experienced and efficient, but Leo had sought Sophia at the first opportunity. A pattern was emerging, but Dominic still didn't want to admit what his eyes were seeing. His scientific plan was working, but not in the way he had predicted. The answer he was looking for wasn't in any of his carefully selected candidates. It was there every day, invisible to his analytical criteria, but perfectly visible to his son's heart. The discovery happened in the worst possible way. Sophia was cleaning Dominic's office on a Friday afternoon when she found, forgotten on the desk, an open folder titled Project Ideal. Mother, Candidates and Evaluations. Initially, she thought it was some company project, but curiosity made her look closer. Her hands trembled as she read the detailed profiles of the women who had been in the house in recent weeks. Camilla Rogers, Amanda Silva, Isabella Dubois. They were all there, with professional photos, complete resumes, and cold notes about their interactions with Leo. Candidate 1, too technical. Leo showed resistance. Candidate 2, adequate professional approach, but lack of emotional connection. Candidate 3, exceptional international experience, however. Leo seeks comfort alternatives. Sophia felt her blood run cold as she understood the truth. Dominic wasn't hiring professionals to help Leo. He was selecting a wife, a mother for his son. And all those bright and sophisticated women were pieces in an elaborate game she didn't even know existed. On the last page, she found the schedule of the next candidates. A pediatrician, an art therapist, a chef specializing in children's nutrition. 12 women in total, all with impressive qualifications, all being secretly tested on their maternal capacity. The tears came before she could control them. Sophia always knew she was invisible in that world, but discovering so brutally that she wasn't even considered as a possibility hurt more than she expected. She was just the housekeeper, the employee who cleaned the house, while real women competed for Leo's heart and Dominic's attention. The worst thing of all was realizing how she had deluded herself. In recent months, she had begun to feel that she belonged to that house in a different way. Leo's smiles, the casual conversations with Dominic, the feeling that she was making a difference in their lives. It was all just a fantasy on her part. She remained what she had always been, a replaceable employee. Sophia quickly put the papers back in the folder, trying to leave everything exactly as she found it, but her hands trembled so much that she dropped some documents. As she bent down to pick them up, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Dominic was coming back. "Sophia, are you okay?" he asked, noticing her red face and teary eyes. "Yes, Mr. Albright, I just tripped and dropped some papers. I'm almost done here." Dominic looked at the folder on the desk, then at Sophia, and a strange unease took hold of him. There was something in her posture, in the way she avoided looking directly at him, that made him uncomfortable. "Are you sure everything's all right?" "Of course, sir." "Excuse me?" Sophia left the office faster than she should have, and Dominic was left alone with the nagging feeling that something important had just happened. He looked at the folder on his desk and noticed that it was slightly out of the position where he had left it. That night, Sophia arrived home devastated. Maria noticed immediately that something was wrong. "So, what's with that face? Did something happen at work?" Sophia collapsed on the sofa in the small living room and told her sister everything. The discovery of the project, the humiliation of realizing her real position, the pain of understanding that all the special moments with Leo were just coincidences in the midst of a larger plan she wasn't even part of. "That man is a jerk," Maria exploded. "How can he treat people like test objects? And you, Sophia, you're not invisible. You're worth more than all those women full of diplomas." "I'm not, Maria. And you know what's worse? I started to delude myself. I started to imagine that maybe there was something special in the way he looked at me sometimes. As if I was more than just the housekeeper. And you're not just the housekeeper. You're the person that boy looks for when he's sad. That makes him laugh for real. Doesn't that count for anything?" Sophia shook her head, the tears starting to flow again. "It counts for Leo, but not for his father. To Dominic, I'm part of the furniture, and maybe it's better that way. I don't have a university degree. I don't speak other languages. I don't know how to behave at fancy dinners. What future could a person like me have with a man like him?" Monday arrived heavily. Sophia seriously considered not going to work, inventing an illness, quitting by phone. But she needed the job, and Maria was right about one thing. Leo wasn't to blame for what his father was doing. When she arrived at the mansion, she found a new candidate already installed. Patricia Foster, a pediatrician trained at Johns Hopkins with a residency in London, was in the living room with Leo, checking his neurological reflexes as part of a routine checkup. Sophia passed straight through the room without greeting anyone, but couldn't avoid noticing how Leo looked at the door, clearly hoping she would stop to talk as she always did. Throughout the day, Sophia avoided any unnecessary contact with the family. She did her work with her usual efficiency, but without the small, affectionate gestures that had become natural. She didn't ask about Leo's homework, didn't offer help with snacks, didn't smile when she crossed paths with him in the hallways. Leo noticed the change immediately. At lunchtime, he looked for Sophia in the laundry room. "And Sophia, are you mad at me?" The question broke her heart. "No, Leo, of course I'm not mad at you. Then why haven't you talked to me today? And why are your eyes red?" Sophia knelt down to the boy's height, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Sometimes adults get sad for reasons that children don't need to worry about. But it has nothing to do with you, okay? Dr. Foster said she's going to teach me about the human body, but I prefer when you teach me things. You explain in a way that I understand better." At that moment, Sophia made a painful decision. Leo deserved a real mother, someone who could offer him a bright future, quality education, opportunities that she could never provide. If Dominic was looking for the best option for his son, she shouldn't interfere with her confusing presence and her inadequate feelings. "Leo, you are a very special boy, and your daddy wants the best for you. These teachers and doctors know much more than me. You should give them a chance, okay?" That afternoon, Sophia finished her chores an hour early and left the mansion without saying goodbye. She didn't know yet if she would return the next day. For the first time since she had started working there, she questioned whether it was worth continuing in that place where she was just a shadow amidst the brilliance of women who really deserved to be part of that world. On the following Tuesday, Sophia barely slept. She arrived at the mansion with swollen eyes, determined to maintain the professional distance she had established. But her plans crumbled before she even started the day. Leo was sitting on the main staircase, in the same place where she had found him on that rainy morning in May. Only this time, he wasn't just crying, he was sobbing in a way that broke your heart. Beside him, Mrs. Lucy was trying to comfort him without success. "What happened?" asked Sophia, instantly forgetting her resolutions and rushing to the boy. "He's been like this since yesterday," explained Mrs. Lucy, her face etched with worry. "He hasn't eaten properly, hasn't slept well. He keeps asking if you don't like him anymore." Sophia felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "Leo, honey, of course I like you. Then why don't you talk to me anymore?" The boy sobbed, throwing himself into her arms. "Why are you staying away? Did I do something wrong?" No, Leo, you didn't do anything wrong, ever. At that moment, Dominic came down the stairs from his office, drawn by the sound of his son's crying. He stopped when he saw Sophia hugging Leo, and something in his expression changed. In recent days, he had noticed the change in behavior of both Leo and Sophia, but hadn't been able to connect the two facts. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice tenser than usual. Mrs. Lucy, who had worked for the family for over 10 years and had gathered courage during the sleepless night, stepped forward. "Mr. Dominic, I need to talk to you. In private?" Dominic hesitated, looking at Leo, who was still clinging to Sophia as if she were going to disappear at any moment. "Sophia, can you stay with Leo for a minute?" "Mrs. Lucy, let's go to the office." Sophia nodded, still confused, and took Leo to the living room, where they sat together on the sofa. The boy wouldn't let go of her hand. In the office, Mrs. Lucy took a deep breath before starting. "Mr. Dominic, I know it's not my place, but this boy is suffering, and so is Sophia. And you're being blind. Mrs. Lucy, I don't understand. You don't see what's right in front of you." The woman exploded, surprising Dominic with her vehemence. "For months I've seen this boy blossoming with Sophia. She's the only person who can make him laugh for real, who calms him down when he's sad, who treats him like a real child, not like a project." Dominic sat heavily in the chair. "Mrs. Lucy, Sophia's our employee. I need to find someone suitable to be Leo's mother, someone who can offer him..." "Offer what? Diplomas? Money?" "The boy already has all that and he's unhappy." Mrs. Lucy shook her head. "Sir, I raised 3 kids. I know what maternal love is when I see it. And that girl loves your son as if he were her own. And more, you're also different when you're around her." "That's ridiculous. Is it really? Then why do you always invent excuses to show up in the kitchen when she's there? Why do you ask about her when she's absent? Why do you watch when she plays with Leo?" Dominic fell silent, Mrs. Lucy's words echoing in his mind like truths he had refused to see. "That girl found out about your little game," continued the cook more gently now. "She saw the papers in your office last Friday. She's heartbroken, thinking she'll never be good enough for you. And Leo feels like he's losing the only person who really understands him." Dominic's blood ran cold. Sophia had seen the project files. She knew about the candidates, about the selection process, and she had interpreted it in the worst possible way. "My God," he murmured, running his hands through his hair. "She must think I'm a monster. Not a monster, just a very smart man who's being very dumb." At that moment, a soft knock on the door interrupted the conversation. Sophia appeared, still with Leo clinging to her hand. "Sorry to bother you, but Leo wants to talk to his daddy." Leo let go of Sophia's hand and ran to Dominic, climbing onto his lap with the ease of someone who was still small enough to do so. "Daddy, can you stop bringing those women here? They keep trying to teach me things, but I just want to play. And they make Aunt Sophia sad." Dominic looked at Sophia over Leo's head. She was leaning against the door with her arms crossed, avoiding his gaze. "Why do you think they make Aunt Sophia sad, Leo?" "Because she thinks you don't like her anymore." "But I do. I like her a lot. She's the best person in the whole world." The silence that followed was charged with unspoken emotions. Sophia felt the tears returning, but this time they were tears of a different pain, the pain of knowing that no matter how much Leo loved her, she could never be an official part of that family. "Leo," said Dominic, his voice softer than Sophia had ever heard, "if you could choose anyone in the world to be your mother, who would you choose?" Sophia closed her eyes, expecting to hear the name of one of the candidates, or perhaps an impossible request for the mother he had lost. "I'd choose Aunt Sophia," Leo replied without hesitation. "She makes me feel like I'm special, not because I'm rich or because you're my dad, but because I'm me. And she makes you smile too, Daddy. I see." Leo's words hung in the air like a confession that changed everything. Dominic looked at Sophia with an intensity she had never seen before, as if he were seeing her for the first time. And perhaps he was. Sophia felt the world spinning around her. Leo had chosen her, not the brilliant and qualified women, not the perfect candidates with impressive resumes. Her, the invisible housekeeper who just loved that boy with all the simplicity of her heart. Mrs. Lucy cleared her throat gently. "I think you two have a lot to talk about. I'll take Leo to have a snack." When they were alone, Sophia and Dominic looked at each other across the office, separated by much more than just a few feet of space. Between them were class differences, social expectations, and now the revelation that everything Sophia thought she knew about her place in that house was about to be questioned. The silence in Dominic's office was deafening. Sophia remained leaning against the door, her hands trembling slightly, while he watched her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Leo's revelation still echoed between them like a bomb that had exploded, leaving debris of certainties and convictions scattered on the floor. "Sophia," began Dominic, his voice cautious, "about the papers you saw, I can explain." "There's no need to explain anything, Mr. Albright," she replied, forcing a firmness she didn't feel. "I understand perfectly. You're looking for a suitable wife, an appropriate mother for Leo. It's only natural that you want the best for your son." "You don't understand." Dominic stood up, taking a step towards her. "When I started this project, I was desperate. Leo was suffering, and I thought I could solve this like I solve business problems, with planning, analysis, careful selection." Sophia laughed bitterly. "And it worked. You found many perfect candidates, intelligent, educated, sophisticated women. Any of them would be a wonderful mother for Leo. None of them achieved what you do naturally," he said, his voice growing softer. "None of them makes Leo smile like you do. None of them. None of them what?" Sophia felt the anger rising, mixed with a deep pain. "None of them is just a housekeeper who can play with him without consequences? An employee he can love without complications, because I would never be a real threat to your world." "Sophia, that's not it." "Yes, it is," she exploded, the tears finally overcoming her resistance. "That's exactly it. I'm safe because I'm invisible. Leo can love me because I'll never really matter. I'm like a favorite toy, comfortable, familiar, but ultimately replaceable when something better comes along." Dominic fell silent, watching Sophia fall apart in front of him. Every word she said was like a stab in his chest, because he realized that his cold and calculating approach had hurt exactly the person who mattered most. "Do you really think that's what I think of you?" he asked gently. "It's not what you think, it's what I know." Sophia wiped the tears with the back of her hand. "Mr. Albright, I look in the mirror every morning. I know exactly who I am and where I come from. I'm a 28-year-old woman without higher education who cleans houses to survive. I live in a poor neighborhood with my sister and my sick mother. I wear clothes bought at thrift stores and save pennies to pay for transportation." She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "And you are Dominic Albright, CEO of an empire, educated at the best universities, heir to a traditional family. Your social circle frequents exclusive clubs where I couldn't even get in as a guest. We live in parallel universes that touch only because you need someone to clean your house. Sophia, and you know what's worse?" She continued, her voice breaking. "For a moment, a terrible moment of illusion, I let my heart imagine that maybe there was a possibility. That maybe the affection I see in your eyes sometimes was real. That maybe Leo, seeing me as a mother, meant that I could be part of this family for real." Dominic tried to approach, but Sophia recoiled. "But when I saw those papers, when I understood that there was a selection process that I didn't even know existed, I realized how ridiculous I was. Of course you wouldn't consider me. Why would you consider me? I'm not even a viable candidate." At that moment, the doorbell of the mansion rang. Helen, Dominic's assistant, appeared at the door of the office with a tense expression. "Mr. Albright, sorry to interrupt, but unexpected visitors have arrived. Your mother-in-law, Mrs. Eleanor, and your brother-in-law, Dr. Edward, are in the living room. They said they need to talk about urgent family matters." Sophia paled. Dominic's mother-in-law was one of the most powerful women in high society, and Dr. Edward was known for his political influence. She couldn't be seen there, in that state, discussing personal matters with Dominic. "I need to go," she murmured, trying to pass by Helen. "Sophia, wait," asked Dominic. But it was too late. Mrs. Eleanor Albright entered the office like an elegant hurricane, wearing a Chanel suit and carrying a Hermes bag that cost more than Sophia earned in a year. Her cold eyes swept the room and stopped at Sophia with an expression of poorly disguised contempt. "Dominic, dear," she said, completely ignoring Sophia. "We need to talk. Edward brought disturbing information about certain rumors that are circulating about you." Dr. Edward appeared behind her, tall and imposing, with the air of superiority that Sophia knew well from the few times she had seen him at the mansion. "Dominic, they're saying you've been behaving strangely, hiring suspicious women, getting involved with unsuitable people." His eyes fixed on Sophia accusingly. "I hope there's no truth to these rumors." Sophia felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. The poorly disguised look of disgust from Mrs. Eleanor, the cruel suspicion of Dr. Edward, the way they talked about her as if she were a threat, a contamination in their perfect world. Everything confirmed her worst fears about how she would be seen if she dared to dream beyond her position. "Excuse me," she murmured, almost running to leave the office. "Who is that woman, Dominic?" she heard Mrs. Eleanor ask behind her. "Why was an employee in your personal office?" Sophia ran to the service bathroom and locked herself inside, her hands trembling violently. She looked in the mirror and saw exactly what Mrs. Eleanor and Dr. Edward had seen. A simple woman with cheap clothes, completely out of place in that world of luxury and sophistication. How had she been so foolish as to imagine, even for a second, that she could belong there? Leo might love her, Dominic might feel something for her, but their world would never accept her. She would always be the housekeeper who dared to dream too high, the unsuitable woman who needed to be kept away from the eyes of society. At that moment, with her heart broken and her soul crushed by the cruel reality of her position, Sophia made the most difficult decision of her life. She would leave that house today and never come back. As much as she loved Leo, as much as her heart ached at the thought of life without them, she couldn't continue subjecting herself to the humiliation of living on the periphery of a world that would never accept her. It was time to go back to her place and accept that some dreams simply weren't made for people like her. Sophia left the service bathroom with her face washed and the decision made. She collected her personal belongings from the employee locker, a simple mug, an old coat, and a small photo of the children at the shelter that she kept as inspiration. Her hands trembled, but her determination was firm. She found Mrs. Lucy in the kitchen preparing lunch, and the older woman immediately realized that something was very wrong. "Honey, what happened? You're as white as a ghost." "Mrs. Lucy, I'm leaving now." "What? Do you mean you're leaving? Did something happen?" Sophia took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice steady. Visitors arrived at the house. Mr. Dominic's mother-in-law and his brother-in-law. They made it very clear what my place is here. "And they're right." Mrs. Lucy dropped the spoon she was holding. "Sophia, you can't give up now. Not after what happened this morning, what Leo said. It was exactly because of what Leo said that I need to leave." The tears returned to Sophia's eyes. "That boy loves me, Mrs. Lucy, and I love him too, more than I ever imagined it was possible to love a child that isn't mine. But love isn't sufficient. Of course it's sufficient. It's not." Sophia slammed her hand on the counter. "Love doesn't change social class, doesn't change education, doesn't change reality. Leo deserves a mother who can walk with her head held high in his world, who can give him opportunities, connections, a proper social standing. Not a woman who will always be seen as the housekeeper who managed to seduce the boss." At that moment, they heard raised voices coming from the office. Through the ajar kitchen door, they could catch fragments of the conversation between Dominic and his family members. "Completely inappropriate behavior," was Mrs. Eleanor's voice. "Your reputation and Leo's are at stake," Dr. Edward added. "Needs to think about the future of the company. The family business." Sophia felt each word as a confirmation of her worst fears. They were discussing her, treating her like a problem to be solved, a threat to be eliminated. "Are you hearing this?" she whispered to Mrs. Lucy. "They're right. I'm a problem for this family. It was then that Leo appeared in the kitchen with red eyes and carrying his teddy bear. "Aunt Sophia, why are the adults shouting? And why do you have that sad face again?" Sophia knelt down to the boy's height, trying to smile through the tears. "Leo, I need to leave." "Leave where? To your house? Are you coming back tomorrow?" "No, honey. I'm not going to work here anymore." Leo's face transformed into pure confusion and then into panic. "No, you can't leave. You promised you'd never leave me." "I never promised that, Leo." "Yes, you did. When I asked if you were always going to stay with me, you said that as long as I needed you, you'd be here." Sophia felt like she'd been punched. She had said that in a moment of affection, without thinking about the consequences. For Leo, it had been a sacred promise. "But Leo, your daddy is going to find someone much better to take care of you. An educated, intelligent woman." "I don't want an educated woman," Leo screamed, throwing himself into her arms. "I want you, only you. You're my heart's mom." Leo's words echoed through the kitchen like a battle cry. Mrs. Lucy approached and put her hand on Sophia's shoulder. "Honey, are you hearing what this boy is saying? He's choosing you, not out of obligation, not out of convenience, but out of pure and true love." Sophia hugged Leo tightly, feeling her heart break. "But Mrs. Lucy, their world won't accept it. You heard the voices in the office. To them, I'm inadequate, I'm a problem. So what?" Mrs. Lucy crossed her arms with the determination that Sophia knew well. "Since when do you care what other people think? You've always been proud of who you are, of your honest work, of your character. Why are you now going to let the opinion of arrogant people define your worth?" At that moment, the voices from the office became louder. They clearly heard Dr. Edwards say, "Dominic, you need to keep that woman away from Leo immediately. A child can't get attached to someone so unsuitable. It's harmful to his development." Sophia felt something break inside her, but it wasn't her determination. It was her fear. A righteous and powerful anger began to grow in her chest. How dare they talk about what was harmful to Leo? They who barely knew the boy, who saw him a few times a year, who treated his pain and loneliness as whims. "You know what, Mrs. Lucy?" said Sophia, wiping her tears and standing up. "They're right about one thing. I'm unsuitable for their world. But you know what else? Their world is what's unsuitable for Leo." Leo stopped crying and looked at her attentively. "I see this boy every day," continued Sophia, her voice growing firmer with each word. "I see his loneliness, the way he seeks genuine affection, how he blossoms when someone treats him like a normal child instead of a little heir. And these people in there want to decide what's best for him without even asking what he feels." Mrs. Lucy smiled. "Now you're talking like the Sophia I know." "Leo," said Sophia, looking directly into the boy's eyes, "do you really want me to stay? Even knowing that it's going to be difficult, that some people aren't going to like it, that maybe we're going to have to fight a lot." Leo nodded vigorously. "I want you to be my real mom. And I don't care if other people don't like it. Daddy said that brave people fight for what's right." Sophia took a deep breath. For the first time in her life, she was going to fight for something she wanted, not just accept what they thought was appropriate for her. She was going to fight for Leo, for Dominic, and especially for herself. "Then it's settled. I'm going to stay, but I'm not going to hide or apologize for who I am anymore." She headed for the kitchen door, determined to return to the office and face that family. She wasn't going to accept being treated as invisible or inadequate anymore. If they wanted to decide Leo's future, they would have to listen to the opinion of the person who really knew and loved that boy. The final battle was about to begin, and Sophia was finally ready to fight. Sophia walked down the hallway towards the office with firm steps, Leo holding her hand and Mrs. Lucy right behind, like a small, determined army. Each step brought her closer to the moment that would change her life forever. She stopped at the office door and took a deep breath before knocking. Without waiting for an answer, she opened the door and entered. The scene she found was exactly what she expected. Mrs. Eleanor sitting in an armchair like a queen, judging subjects. Dr. Edwards standing beside her with an air of superiority. And Dominic behind the desk with a tense and frustrated expression. "Excuse me," said Sophia, her voice clear and firm. "I need to talk." Mrs. Eleanor looked at her as if she were an unpleasant apparition. "Young lady, this is a private family conversation. I ask you to leave." "Actually," replied Sophia, entering the office completely with Leo still holding her hand, "this conversation is about me and about Leo, so I have the right to participate." Dr. Edward laughed with disdain. "The right? An employee has no right to—" "She has every right," interrupted Dominic, standing up. "Sophia, you didn't need to—" "Yes, I do," she said, looking directly at him. "Because these people are deciding Leo's future as if he were a property, not a child with feelings and opinions." Mrs. Eleanor stood up indignantly. "How dare you speak to us in this way? Dominic, this is unacceptable." Sophia turned to her, all the anger and determination accumulated, finally finding a voice. "What's unacceptable is you talking about what's best for Leo without even asking what he wants. What's unacceptable is treating a 6-year-old child as if he were a business to be managed." "You don't understand anything about our family," said Dr. Edward, his tone condescending. "A person of your position can't comprehend the responsibilities." "Responsibilities?" Sophia laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about responsibilities? I wake up at 5 in the morning every day to work honestly. I take care of my sick mother, I help my sister study, and I still have time to volunteer at a shelter. And you, what do you do besides judging who deserves to be part of your exclusive circles?" "Sophia," Dominic tried, but she wasn't finished. "I may not have university degrees or speak other languages, but I know one thing that you seem to have forgotten. I know what it is to love a child for real." Sophia looked at Leo, who was beside her with wide eyes. "This boy doesn't need more expensive toys or elite schools. He needs someone who listens when he's sad, who celebrates his small achievements, who makes him feel special for who he is, not for what he owns." Mrs. Eleanor was visibly shocked. "Dominic, are you going to allow this person to disrespect us in this way?" It was then that Dominic stepped forward, placing himself beside Sophia. "This person has a name, Sophia Carter, and she's not disrespecting anyone. She's telling truths that you don't want to hear." "Dominic," exclaimed Mrs. Eleanor, "no. Mom, you heard me when I was desperate looking for a mother for Leo. Now you're going to hear me when I say that I've found the perfect person for that." Dominic took Sophia's free hand. "Sophia is not just an employee. She's the woman who makes my son smile for real, who brought joy to this house, who taught me that love has no price or social standing." Dr. Edward shook his head. "Dominic, you're making a mistake that will destroy your reputation, your business." "My business is doing very well, thank you. And my reputation? Well, I prefer to be known as the man who chose love over convenience than as someone who sacrificed his own son's happiness for social expectations." Leo let go of Sophia's hand and ran to his father. "Daddy, does that mean Aunt Sophia can be my real mom?" Dominic knelt down to his son's height. "Leo, that means that if she accepts, we're going to form a real family. But first," he looked at Sophia, "I need to apologize to Sophia for having been so blind and for having put her in such a difficult situation." Sophia felt the tears returning, but this time they were tears of joy. "Dominic?" "Sophia, I started a project to find a mother for Leo, but I was looking in the wrong place. The person I was looking for was here all along, taking care of us with a dedication that no candidate could offer." He approached her. "I fell in love with you, with your simplicity, with your authenticity, with the way you love Leo and how you made this house become a home." Mrs. Eleanor was gaping. "Dominic, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." Dominic turned to his mother-in-law. "And if you can't accept the woman I've chosen, that my son has chosen, then you'll have to choose between accepting our family or staying out of it." The silence that followed was broken by Leo. "So Aunt Sophia is going to stay with us forever?" Sophia knelt down and hugged the boy. "If you want me, I'll stay forever." "We want you," shouted Leo, throwing himself into her arms. Dominic approached and wrapped them both in a hug. "We want you very much." Mrs. Eleanor and Dr. Edward left the office in silence, clearly defeated but not willing to cause more drama at that moment. 6 months later, the chapel of the mansion was decorated with simple but elegant flowers. Sophia, wearing a modest but beautiful white dress, walked towards the altar where Dominic awaited her with Leo beside him, carrying the rings on a velvet cushion. In the front row, Maria cried with emotion beside Sophia's mother, who had recovered wonderfully well with the new treatments that they could now afford. Mrs. Lucy was in the second row, smiling proudly as if she were the mother of the bride. When the priest asked if there was anyone who opposed that union, Leo raised his little hand. "I object to taking any longer. I want her to be my mom now." Everyone laughed, and Sophia felt that she was finally where she should have always been, at the center of a family that loved her exactly as she was. Dominic had discovered that true wealth wasn't in his bank accounts, but in his son's genuine smile and in the pure love of a woman who transformed his house into a home. Sophia had learned that true love knows no social barriers and that sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden where we least expect them. And Leo finally had the mother he had chosen with his heart, proving that children always know what really matters in life. Dear listeners, we hope that Sophia's journey has touched you deeply, showing that true love transcends any social barrier. This story of overcoming and authenticity is part of our special collection of narratives that celebrate the strength of the human heart. To continue this emotional journey with us, find our playlist with equally inspiring stories by clicking to your left. If Sophia and Leo's story warmed your hearts, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like. This helps us continue bringing stories that transform and move. Every day, we share unique narratives that explore the deepest feelings of the human experience. Don't miss our next content and tell us in the comments, what was the moment that moved you the most in Sophia's story? We look forward to seeing you on our next adventure of the heart.